I don't even know what RPT means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
No, it's not. It's
Gets
gross.
the people going.
It's
No,
disgusting.
that's enough!
It's a good story. It's funny. You're a funny guy.
You mean the way I talk? What?
It's just, you're just funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you? I make you laugh? What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
So let me first start off by saying that I see nothing wrong with the RPT strategy. Okay, this is not a hit piece on RPT. This is not an anti-RPT webinar in any way, shape, or form. It's purely a mathematical objective comparison between the RPT model and one of my premium financing models.
To make it easier to see this presentation, you can maximize your screen by clicking the little box that looks like this in the bottom right-hand corner of the video. So go ahead and click that icon now, and we'll get this webinar started, hosted by Darren Sugiyama and LionSmart Capital. We hope you enjoy this presentation.
Hey guys, Darren Sugiyama here, CEO and founder of LionSmart Capital, the most transparent premium financing intermediary firm in the life insurance industry. So in today's webinar, I'm going to take a look and review a case I just modeled for an advisor that wanted to know how my premium financing strategy engineered for accumulation and retirement income compares to a restricted property trust, otherwise known as an RPT. In the RPT, this is where the client funds a whole life policy with pre-tax dollars. So let me first start off by saying that I see nothing wrong with the RPT strategy. Okay, this is not a hit piece on RPT. This is not an anti-RPT webinar in any way, shape, or form. It's purely a mathematical objective comparison between the RPT model and one of my premium financing models. As much as high income earners want to save income taxes in the immediate year, which I totally get, the question becomes, is it always better to fund a retirement account with pre-tax dollars, or are there times when a different structure funded with after-tax dollars works out better? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this webinar, purely based on mathematical outcomes. Okay, no emotion, no feelings, okay, just math. So let's go ahead and get started. So your goal is to generate a retirement income stream. And we have several different financial instruments that you can use to accomplish this. We're going to take a look at 3 different options. We're going to start with the outcomes first, and then we'll get into the granular details of how we arrived at these numbers. On this summary page, the green section up top is the premium finance life insurance policy. The orange is the non-finance life insurance policy. Which is basically the same product with no additional lender-funded premiums going in. So the only premium entering the policy are the dollars that you're contributing. And then the blue is a non-insurance-based investment account. And each of these assets assumes the same gross return each year. The arrow boxes on the left show the total contributions you'd make, and the rectangular boxes on the right show the total economic benefit over a 40-year period, which include the total retirement income drawdowns from the policy, plus the cash value at the end of the 40th year. So when we look at the dollars in versus dollars out, the premium finance life insurance policy, again, that's the green one up top, generates a far better financial outcome than the other 2 assets for the same dollars contributed. So with this particular client, I was asked to show a comparison funding a whole life policy using a restricted property trust and using pre-tax dollars compared to using our 3rd-year financing platform using after-tax dollars. So let's take a look at the comparison. So in this orange section, this is the whole life policy in the RPT structure. Here we have the pre-tax contribution for a period of 10 years. And then over there in the green section, this is the after-tax equivalent being contributed to our third year financing model. Because in the RPT proposal we looked at, they assumed a 45% income tax rate. So we just use the same assumption in this comparison. In the RPT proposal, these are the income drawdowns from the whole life policy, and they didn't include any carrier illustration in the proposal. So we really don't know what their version looks like beyond this point here. And the RPT ledger stopped at this point. So I don't know, probably because if you look at the cash value at that point, there's very little cash value left over after the income drawdowns. Compare this to our third year financing program. We're generating a little bit more income, but more importantly, take a look at the cash value of our third year financing policy after the drawdowns compared to the cash value in the RPT whole life policy. And not only that, we're assuming that our premium financing borrowing rates perpetually increase up north of 8.5% by the 10th year. So we're being almost pessimistic and really ultra conservative on the leverage side. And I'll review the premium financing ledger in the next slide. So let's take a look at the premium finance life insurance policy design and the loan model. So in column 1, this is the actual annual premium that enters the policy each year. And in column 2, this is the premium that you would pay out of pocket. Column 3 is the premium that the lender is going to pay. In other words, the premium that you'll borrow from the bank, and they'll charge you interest each year on the cumulative loan balance. Now, these are speculative borrowing rates, obviously. The borrowing rates may be higher in the coming years, or they may be lower than what we're modeling here. With most lenders, they reset the borrowing rate once per year at loan/policy anniversary. So here we're showing the interest charged in column 6, and in column 7, this is the interest accrued. And in column 8 here, this is your planned annual contributions. The equity premiums plus any interest if you're not accruing the interest. And if you are accruing interest, obviously the values here in column 8 are solely the equity premiums from column 2. Now, in some cases, the lender might require you to post collateral here in column 9. And this would happen in any year where the policy value was less than the outstanding loan balance. Much of the collateral calculation is based on the policy performance and the cash value. So if the policy performs worse than what we're showing here, you might have to post a little more collateral. And if the policy value performs better, the collateral requirement might be a little less. And these amounts are assuming that you post cash as collateral. If you were to post marketable securities as collateral as opposed to cash, these numbers might be double what we're showing on the screen here. Okay, moving on. In this scenario, we're assuming this average rate of return here in column 10. Obviously, if the return is less, the cash value might be less. And if the return is greater, the cash value can be more. And later on in this video, we are going to talk about volatility and historical returns of the S&P 500 and how those historical index returns might affect outcomes. Okay, in column 11, we're showing the third-party loan payoff. That's the first number you see there in that column. And in later years, you could take tax-free drawdowns as a retirement income stream or as a way to recover the cost of your contributions you made in the earlier years. Or you could not take any drawdowns whatsoever and maximize the death benefit going to your beneficiary. The choice is yours, and the nice thing is that you don't need to make this decision up front. You can wait to make that decision when the time actually comes in the future. Because as you know, you may or may not want or need to take those drawdowns in the future. And then lastly, in column 14, we see the net death benefit in each given year. This is the net amount the insurance carrier would pay to your beneficiary, a net of all loans. And by the way, even though we're only showing a 40-year window on this page, the policy is designed to last until age 120. So we analyze 121 different 40-year historical periods of S&P 500 performance, and we built a proxy for the life insurance policy for the purpose of explaining how these charges and credits work during times of volatility. Now, we call this proxy a leveraged hypothetical synthetic asset, which is not the actual life insurance policy, but rather a fictitious asset that depicts a similar charges and crediting methodology as the real-world product. So this ledger shows the 40-year period that produced the worst compounded annual growth rate out of the 121 different 40-year periods that we analyzed. In column 3, these are the standard annual charges that are deducted first before any index credits. And in column 4, these are the back-tested years. Like, for example, in 1973, the S&P 500 produced a negative 41.4% return. And in that given year, your cash value would not decrease by 41.4% because you're protected by the 0% floor. Remember, this is after the charges have been deducted. However, in 1975, when the S&P 500 returned a positive 25% return, you'd hit the cap, which is the maximum allowable gross credit in a given year. So in column 10, this is the index credit that would be applied to the end year accumulated value. Now, I know there are a lot of numbers on the page here, but to make it easier to understand the impact that these charges and credits have on the values over time, take a look at the 3 orange columns, column 11, 12, and 13. In column 11, those are what the credits in dollar amounts would have looked like in each given year. In column 12, those are what the total charges would have been in each given year. And in column 13, it shows what the net gain or net loss would have been to the cash value in each given year. In other words, the credits or debits to the cash value. Again, this is just a proxy for the real world product, but the spirit of this explanation is to help you better understand how charges and the crediting methodology works from a mechanical perspective. Now, let's take a look at how the hypothetical static outcomes depicted in the carrier illustration compare to the historical back-tested outcomes in our proxy. So this graph here shows a comparison between a static return assumption and our proxy's hypothetical performance, based on historical volatility. The black line is the death benefit as illustrated in the carrier illustration, assuming a static average rate of return. And the blue line represents the ongoing cash value under that same static assumption as depicted in the hypothetical carrier illustration. The dashed green line represents the hypothetical simulated cash value in the proxy during the 40-year period that produced the best compounded annual growth rate out of the 121 different historical 40-year periods we analyzed. And the dotted green line represents the worst 40-year period analyzed. In other words, the 40-year period that produced the worst compound annual growth rate out of those 121 different historical 40-year periods that we analyzed. And then the solid green line depicts a hypothetical 40-year period that started in the year 2000, wherein there were 4 zero index credits that would have occurred within the first 10 years of the sequence. And during this period, we also used the actual historical borrowing rates during this time. And then we run that sequence forward all the way up until last year. And then we use the same static return as shown in the carrier illustration in the remaining years. So we think it's important to understand that based on how the market does, as well as the future of borrowing interest rates, that there's a range of potential outcomes, right? Not only with the cash value, but also with the potential income drawdowns. If we look at the green box in the bottom of the legend there, you can see the variance in cumulative drawdowns that may be possible, based on the static as illustrated returns in the life insurance carrier illustration compared to the various sequence of returns and volatility in the proxy during versions depicting the best 40, the worst 40, and that hypothetical 40-year period that started in the year 2000. The value of this particular slide is to understand that there could be, again, a range of outcomes based on what the actual index does over the next 40 years, what interest rates do over the next several years, and based on the sequence of returns. And one last thing to understand about this slide is that it is possible that the next 40 years might produce an even worse outcome than the 40-year period that produced the worst compound annual growth rate out of those 121 different 40-year periods that we analyzed. Just like it is also possible that the next 40 years could create an even better outcome than the best 40-year period that we analyzed. Okay, so two more comparisons we'll look at before we wrap this up. The first one is the proxy for the premium finance life insurance policy, and we're going to compare that to an equities and bonds account. The premium finance life insurance policy is in green, and at the top of the screen, we're looking at the 40-year period that produced the best compound annual growth rate out of the 121 different historical periods that we analyzed. And at the bottom of the screen, that's the 40-year period that produced the worst compound annual growth rate. And in blue, we used a hypothetical equities and bonds account during the same back-tested periods. For equities, we used historical S&P 500 returns, and then for bonds, we used historical T-bond returns. 70% of the portfolio is in equities and 30% is in bonds. And we see the income drawdown comparison in the bar graphs on the left-hand side of the screen, and on the right-hand side of the screen, these graphs show the ongoing account balances in each asset. As you can see, the equities and bonds account in the dotted blue line on the right-hand side of the screen is diminished towards the end of the 40-year periods compared to the green line. So for people that think that premium financed cash value life insurance doesn't provide as much retirement income as traditional investment portfolios, well, this historical data proves otherwise. So the pages we reviewed in this video only provide a brief overview of an extremely thorough 50-plus page analysis. The summary is not intended to be the sole source of information used in making any financial decision. And you should have been provided a full report that includes all of the ledgers that mathematically explain how the outcomes depicted in this video were calculated in full transparency. And if you haven't received this full report, you can request it by emailing us at support@lionsmarkcapital.com. And always remember that any decision to purchase a life insurance policy or any financial instrument for that matter should be made after reviewing the official carrier illustration and the full report with your financial, legal, and tax professionals. And lastly, I am an internationally acclaimed author and expert on this topic. I have my books being distributed currently in 14 different countries in addition to the US. And one of my books, Premium Finance Life Insurance, The Key to Effective Estate Tax Planning, is available on Amazon. And I publish an updated version of this book each year, so make sure you get the most recent version. So I hope this video was helpful, as its intent was really rooted in education and full transparency. And again, this was just a brief summary overview. So if you have any questions, again, happy to jump on a Zoom call with you personally and help you navigate through making this really fantastic decision for you and your family.